At the beginning of the story, we see a white car in the middle of a Korean city with a man in it. He's darting around as if searching for prey. He spots a black car ahead. He starts chasing it. After driving a short distance, he rams the car from behind. After being hit from behind, the man gets out of his car and takes out his mobile phone to take photos of the car for insurance purposes so the insurance company can cover the damage. Little did he know that getting out of his car would prove to be the biggest mistake of his life. While he's busy taking photos of his car, the man who rear-ended the black car pulls out a knife and stabs the man in the black car, then takes him inside and kills him. After killing the man, the killer leaves in his car. The next day, a police team, Music, arrives at the scene where the killer had killed a man in his car the night before. The police detective, Music, examines the man's dead body closely and then looks around the car. Music. He notices a white dent on the back of the car. Upon inspection, the detective realizes the car was struck from behind. Noticing a white-colored dent, he also deduces that the vehicle involved in the collision was white. He then takes a photograph of the dent on the rear of the car. Meanwhile, we are introduced to a mafia boss named Dong-soo, the most powerful figure in Korea, who runs numerous gambling dens that generate massive profits. However, his business is currently struggling because another Korean mafia boss is interfering with his operations. Consequently, Dong-soo goes to confront this rival boss, known as Rolex. During the meeting, Rolex shows Dong-soo absolutely no respect. Instead of discussing important business matters, he simply starts eating. Although Dong-soo is furious, he restrains himself and waits for Rolex to finish his meal. Once the meal is over, Dong-soo tells Rolex that from this point forward, neither will interfere with the other's business. Rolex smiles, but before he can reject the deal, their bodyguards begin to argue and hurl insults at one another. Enraged by this, Dong-soo stands up and delivers a brutal punch to his own guard. He then grabs Rolex's guard and forcibly tears a tooth out of his mouth. Witnessing this act of violence completely shatters Rolex's arrogance, a stark contrast to his earlier attitude of underestimating Dong-soo. Terrified by what he has just witnessed, Rolex is then confronted by Dong-soo, who drops one of his bodyguard's teeth into a wine glass and orders Rolex to drink it. Overcome by fear, Rolex drinks the wine, and a deal is struck between them. From this day forward, neither will interfere in the other's business. Meanwhile, at the police station, a detective examines a photograph of a white dent on the rear of a car. He presents evidence regarding a murder committed in the vehicle the previous night to his boss, noting that similar murders, all involving a knife, have been occurring in the city for months. This implies the presence of a dangerous serial killer who is targeting victims across the city. However, the police officer does not believe the detective and tells him to leave. Meanwhile, we see Dong-soo heading home in his car after finalizing a deal involving a Rolex. As he reaches a deserted road, an unknown man rams his car into Dong-soo's vehicle from behind. This is the same killer who had killed a man the previous night using the exact same tactic. However, the killer is unaware that the person he is messing with today is a mafia don. Dong-soo steps out to inspect the rear of his car and sees that there isn't much damage. He decides to let the matter slide and tells the killer to leave. Just as Dong-soo turns back to get into his car, the killer attacks him from behind with a knife. Little does the killer know, he has picked a fight with the wrong man. Dong-soo grabs the killer and slams him onto the ground. Undeterred, the killer gets back up and lunges at Dong-soo with the knife several times. Enraged, Dong-soo wrests the knife away and stabs the killer in the chest, inflicting a severe wound. Realizing that this man is not an easy target, the killer runs to his car, starts the engine, and rams into Dong-soo, who is standing in the middle of the road, before speeding away. Afterward, Dong-soo is taken to the hospital. Upon seeing their boss in this condition, his guards become furious and immediately attack Rolex's gambling den. Believing that Rolex's men were responsible for the assault, they wreak havoc at the establishment and severely beat up several of Rolex's associates. The next morning, when Dong-soo regains consciousness, he tells his guard that it wasn't Rolex's men who attacked him, but rather an unknown individual. He mentions that he remembers the man's face and has noted down his vehicle's license plate number. Dong-soo writes the killer's vehicle details and license plate number on a piece of paper, hands it to his man, and orders him to find the individual and bring him in as soon as possible. Shortly thereafter, a police detective arrives to see Dong-soo. He asks Dong-soo who attacked him that night. However, Dong-soo refuses to share any information about the killer with the detective, as he intends to catch and kill the culprit himself. Finding no leads, the detective decides to investigate on his own. He steps outside and examines Dong-soo's car, where he spots a white dent on the rear, identical to the one found on the vehicle of a previous murder victim. Realizing this, the detective understands that Dong-soo has been attacked by the same serial killer who has been brutally murdering people for months. Meanwhile, inside, the mafia boss Rolex approaches Dong-soo and complains that Dong-soo's men attacked his hideout the previous night, causing significant losses that must now be compensated. Dong-soo agrees, telling Rolex he will pay for all the damages incurred. Before leaving, Rolex mocks Dong-soo, saying that if someone had attacked him like that, he would have caught the killer by now, or failing that, would have killed himself out of shame before walking away. Outside Inside, the detective tells his superior that Dong-Soo's car bears the same mark found on the rear of the vehicle belonging to the previous victim. He requests permission to interrogate Dong-Soo, arguing that since Dong-Soo is the only person who has actually seen the killer, questioning him would make it easier to apprehend the culprit. However, the officer denies the request. Meanwhile, Dong-Soo is deeply disheartened by his declining reputation in the market, as he has so far failed to catch the killer who attacked him. He has a sketch of the killer drawn up and hands it to one of his men, ordering him to scour every corner of the city. He insists on finding the man at all costs. Elsewhere, the killer is scouting for his next victim when he spots a truck driver on the street talking on the phone. He attacks the driver, stabbing him repeatedly to death, and then drives off in the truck. However, after traveling a short distance, he realizes there is another man inside. He attacks and kills him as well. In the process, he accidentally drops his knife, but leaves without retrieving it, unaware that this mistake of leaving the weapon behind is destined to land him in serious trouble later on. Meanwhile, Dong-Soo remained unable to apprehend the killer, and this failure caused his reputation in the market to plummet. No investor was willing to work with him. Mafia boss Rolex was taking advantage of the situation. Dong-Soo could have set things right, but to do so, he first had to catch the killer. Just then, one of his men approached him and reported that while they hadn't managed to catch the killer yet, they had found the knife used in the 2 murders committed the previous night. They had also located the car, the license plate number of which Dong-Soo had provided. His man pointed out that Rolex had violated the agreement they had made, a pact promising neither would interfere in the other's business. Rolex was now operating in their territory, and word had spread across the city that Dong-Soo was losing his grip, so they needed to act fast. Troubled by this and unsure how to catch the killer, Dong-Soo had a sudden idea. The very next day, he invited the detective to his home and proposed a partnership, noting that since they were both hunting the same killer, joining forces would make the task easier. He also mentioned that he had found the killer's car, though he deliberately withheld information about the knife. They struck a deal. Whoever found the killer first would claim him. The detective envisioned catching the killer before Dong-Soo, bringing him to justice in court, and earning a promotion. Dong-Soo, meanwhile, intended to catch the killer and kill him like a dog. After the deal is struck, Dong-Soo shows the detective a tape, telling him that their entire conversation was recorded on it. He warns that if the detective ever tries to double-cross him, he will expose the recording to the world. Dong-Soo then hands over a sketch of the killer to the detective, who immediately sets out to track him down. He begins by investigating the killer's car, which Dong-Soo's men had located, and discovers the killer's fingerprints inside the vehicle. Meanwhile, seizing the moment, Dong-Soo hands the killer's knife to one of his men and orders him to kill Rolex, explaining that Rolex has reneged on their agreement and is exploiting Dong-Soo's waning reputation to run his own business in Dong-Soo's territory.